Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've always been a bit of an oddball in my family. I never quite felt like I fit in. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I found out why. I was donor conceived. Talk about a bombshell, right? But that wasn't even the worst part. A few years later, I discovered that I was carrying a genetic disorder due to some messed up fertility fraud. The clinic my parents used had switched donors without telling anyone, and now I was stuck with repercussions. When I met my husband, it was like finding a port in a storm. He accepted me, quirks and all, and we fell hard for each other. We got married after 2 years, but not before signing a prenup. It wasn't about the money, he makes way more than I do, but about making sure our relationship was built on love, not finances. When we decided to start a family, we knew we had to be careful. That genetic disorder I mentioned, it can be deadly if passed on. So we went to the IVF route to make sure our kids will be healthy. We also got paternity tests done, not because we didn't trust each other, but because after what happened with my conception, we weren't taking any chances. Everything was going great until my brother-in-law started running his mouth. He's always been a bit intense. Conspiracy theories, traditional values, the whole 9 yards. But lately, he's been using our decision to do paternity tests as some kind of twisted propaganda. It was a regular family dinner when things finally came to a head. My brother-in-law was at it again, spouting his usual nonsense. You know, every man should demand a paternity test. If women have nothing to hide, they shouldn't object. Even my sister-in-law was okay with it, so why shouldn't other women be? I could feel my blood starting to boil. I'd asked him countless times to stop bringing us up in his arguments, but he never listened. I looked at his fiancée, who looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. He says, "When we have kids, you can expect a paternity test before I even hold a baby. It's just common sense." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. Enough. Stop using me as an example in your argument. Our situation is completely different from what you're talking about. What are you talking about? You did the test, didn't you? Yes, we did, but not for the reasons you're implying. We did it because of my history with fertility fraud, not because of trust issues. What you're doing is disrespectful and hurtful, not just to us, but to your fiancé too. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just stating facts. Facts? You're twisting our experience to fit your narrative. How do you think your fiancé feels when you constantly imply she might cheat? The room went silent. My brother-in-law's face turned red with anger. How dare you embarrass me like this in front of everyone? You're making a scene over nothing. I am making a scene? You've been using our personal medical decisions as fodder for your conspiracy theories for months. I've asked you politely to stop and you've ignored me every time. My husband, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. She's right, bro. You need to stop this. It's not cool. Oh, so now you're ganging up on me? Real nice family. Real nice. He stormed out of the room, leaving an awkward silence behind. Some of our in-laws started muttering about how I should have just kept quiet to keep the peace. But his fiancée caught my eye and mouthed a silent thank you. Later that night, as my husband and I were getting ready for bed, he turned to me. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You were right to say something. I just couldn't take it anymore. It's not fair to us, and it's definitely not fair to his fiancée. I know. I'll talk to him tomorrow, make sure he understands this has to stop." I nodded. It wasn't the end of the drama, I was sure, but at least I'd finally stood up for myself. And maybe I'd given his fiancée the courage to stand up for herself too. I've been living with epilepsy for the past decade. It started when I was in my mid-30s. I had my first seizure out of the blue while grocery shopping. Talk about terrifying. Since then, it's been a journey of medications, doctor's appointments, and learning to live with an unpredictable condition. My daughter has been my rock through it all. She's 15 now, but she grew up fast, always looking out for me. I wear a medical alert bracelet, partly for my own safety, but also so she doesn't have to worry as much when we're out and about. Anyway, last weekend was our town's annual summer festival. My daughter begged me to go. She wanted to hang out with her friends enjoy the rides, eat way too much junk food. Normal teenage stuff. I was hesitant at first. Large crowds can sometimes trigger my seizures if I get too overwhelmed. But seeing her excitement, I couldn't say no. I made sure to take my medication, wear my medical alert bracelet, and we headed out. The festival was in full swing when we arrived. Bright colors, loud music, the smell of fried food wafting through the air. My daughter immediately spotted her friends and asked if she could go off with them for a bit. I told her to keep her phone on and check in every hour, then found a quieter spot near some picnic tables to people watch. I was actually enjoying myself, soaking in the atmosphere without getting too overstimulated. That's when everything went sideways. I noticed a woman staring at me from a few tables over. She looked to be in her 50s, with that "I wanna speak to your manager" haircut. You know the type. I tried to ignore her, but she kept glaring. Finally, she got up and marched over to my table. "Excuse me, but what's that on your wrist?" "Oh, this? It's my medical alert bracelet." "Medical alert? For what? You look perfectly fine to me." I sighed. I've had this conversation before, but usually people back off once I explain. "I have epilepsy. The bracelet is in case I have a seizure in public." "Epilepsy? Please. That's just something people say when they want attention. I bet that bracelet isn't even real." "I can assure you it's very real. Now, if you'll excuse me." I tried to stand up and walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "Don't you walk away from me. I'm sick of people like you faking illnesses for sympathy. Take that thing off right now." "Let go of me. You have no right to touch me or demand anything." "I have every right. You're making a mockery of people with real illnesses." Before I could react, she balled up her fist and punched me square in the chest. The shock and pain overwhelmed my system. I felt the telltale aura that precedes my seizures start to wash over me. "No, not now," I heard shouting as I started to lose consciousness. The last thing I remember was collapsing onto the ground as my body began to convulse. When I came to, I was lying on a stretcher. Paramedics were hovering over me, checking my vitals. My daughter was by my side, holding my hand and crying. Mom, are you okay? Can you hear me?" I'm here, sweetie." "What happened?" Paramedic tells me, "Ma'am, you had a seizure. We're going to take you to the hospital to get checked out, okay?" As they started to wheel me towards the ambulance, I noticed a commotion nearby. That woman, Karen, was being held back by two police officers. She was red-faced and screaming. "This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything wrong. She's the one who should be arrested for fraud." The officer tells her, "Ma'am, multiple witnesses saw you assault this woman. You're under arrest for battery and interfering with medical equipment." "But she's faking. Can't you see that?" That's when I noticed my daughter's hand was red and swollen. "Honey, what happened to your hand?" She looked down, embarrassed and proud. I hit her, Mom. After she attacked you, I couldn't just stand there and watch." "Oh, sweetie." "That little brat assaulted me. I want her arrested too." From what we've been told, it was in defense of her mother after you punched her. Now, are you going to come quietly, or do we need to add resisting arrest to your charges? As they led Karen away in handcuffs, I heard snippets of conversation from the crowd that had gathered. Bystander 1, "Can you believe that woman? Who does she think she is? The illness police?" Bystander 2, "I hope they throw the book at her. You can't just go around attacking people because you think they are faking." Bystander 3, "Did you see how hard that girl slapped her? Served her right." The paramedics finished loading me into the ambulance. My daughter climbed in beside me, still holding my hand. "I am so sorry, Mom. I should have been there. I shouldn't have left you alone." "Hey, no, this isn't your fault. You couldn't have known something like this would happen. But if I hadn't begged you to come to the festival, then we would have missed out on a beautiful day together before all this craziness. I don't regret coming, sweetie." As the ambulance pulled away, I saw the police car was Karen in the back. She was still yelling, but I couldn't make out the words. I felt anger at being attacked, fear from the seizure, but also relief. The next few hours were a blur of tests and examinations at the hospital. Fortunately, aside from some bruising on my chest, I hadn't suffered any serious injuries from the seizure or the attack. The doctors wanted to keep me overnight for observation, just to be safe. My daughter refused to leave my side even when visiting hours ended. The nurses took pity on her and brought in a cot so she could sleep in my room. As we settled in for the night, there was a knock at the door. A police officer entered, notepad in hand. "Good evening, ma'am. I hope you're feeling better. I know this isn't the best time, but I need to get your statement about what happened at the festival." I recounted the events as best as I could, with my daughter filling in a part I couldn't remember. The officer listened intently, taking notes. "Thank you for your cooperation. I want you to know that we're taking this very seriously. The woman who attacked you is facing multiple charges, including assault, battery, and violation of the American with Disabilities Act. The ADA? How does that apply? By demanding you remove your medical alert bracelet and accusing you of faking your condition, she was attempting to deny you the use of necessary medical equipment. That's a big no-no." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It wasn't just about me anymore. This could help protect others with invisible illnesses from similar harassment. There is one more thing. Your daughter. I tensed up, worried she might get in trouble for slapping Karen. We're not pursuing any charges against her. Given the circumstances, it was clear she was acting in your defense, but I would advise against taking matters into your own hands in the future, young lady. That's what we're here for. My daughter nodded solemnly. I understand. I was just so scared and angry. That's completely understandable. You both have been through a lot. I'll let you get some rest now. We'll be in touch if we need any additional information. After the officer left, my daughter and I talked late into the night. About the incident, about my epilepsy, about her fears and frustrations. It was a conversation we should have had a long time ago. The next morning, as we were preparing to leave the hospital, a nurse came in with some unexpected news. "There is a crowd of people in the waiting room asking about you. They say they are from the festival yesterday." Confused, I agreed to see them. And to my surprise, it was a group of bystanders who had witnessed the incident. They had brought flowers, cards, and even a small teddy bear wearing a medical alert bracelet on its own. I was overwhelmed by their kindness. What had started as a traumatic experience had turned into a showing of community support I never expected. As we finally left the hospital, I felt different. Still shaken by the attack, yes, but also stronger. I had my daughter by my side, a community that cared, and the knowledge that some karma was being served. Backstory. This story revolves around Sam and Murad. My manager Sam is incredibly relaxed and exceptional leader. His manager Murad is very strict when it comes to following the rules. I work as an infrastructure and configuration manager and happen to be one of the more costly resources on the project within my field. The story takes place in January 2023, during a period when the company was undergoing some restructuring. Most of our contracts included a last-in, first-out clause by default. When I joined in March 2022, I took a 10% pay cut to remove this clause from my contract because I was seeking job stability. Although I still earned more than in my previous job, it was only 20% more instead of 30%. The story. As the infrastructure manager, I am responsible for maintaining all the product licenses the project uses. One of these product licenses requires a digital signature to function. Typically, such tasks require the use of service accounts, which are owned by users. When someone leaves the organization, their service accounts are automatically transferred to their manager. Unfortunately, service accounts cannot have digital signatures, so I had to use mine in this case. The product activation process involves using the corresponding digital signature certificate, DSC. Since I already had a DSC for tax purposes, I decided to reuse it instead of obtaining a separate one. In India, DSCs are encrypted and require a one-time password, OTP, from my mobile number every time they are used. This mobile number must be associated with my national ID, as that's how most encryption services work in India. Sam was on vacation, his first in 5 years. Aside from taking a one-day leave in 2018 when he moved from India to Europe, he had never even taken a sick day. He recently got married, and for his honeymoon he took a 2-month vacation to travel all over Europe with his new wife. In his absence, Murad was overseeing the project. Management asked Murad to cut 15% of his workforce. If you've read my previous posts, you would know that Murad was not pleased with me. So the inevitable happened. I was called into a meeting with Murad in Human Resources. Murad asked me to voluntarily resign or else I will be let go. This is a tactic companies in India often use, as getting fired is considered a much bigger deal than simply losing a job. It's a cultural thing, I suppose. Being fired carries a stigma that most people want to avoid. Human resources usually try to persuade people to resign voluntarily so that it doesn't become public knowledge that they were fired. This tactic often works well, as resigning saves a company from having to pay 3 months' salary, which they would owe if they were to lay off an employee. However, I knew better, so I refused his request. Murad was quite taken aback by this. Since I had called his bluff, he had to double down to show he meant business. By the end of the day, I received my termination email with instructions on how to return the company property I had. Here is a crucial part. I replied to the email asking to schedule the return of the laptop promptly, as I needed to leave the city for a few days, which was a fabricated excuse. My objective was to have them pick up my laptop from my place and format it as soon as possible. This will be important later. By the end of the week, my laptop was picked up. I had already packed up a copy of my digital signature certificate, so there were no issues on my end. Fast forward to mid-February, and there was an issue with the product. The support ticket was raised, and the support team wanted to upgrade to the next version, as this was a known bug that had been resolved in the next version. The product was used once a week to create a weekly report, but no one really looked at it except for Sam, who was still on vacation, so its absence wasn't likely to be noticed for at least a full month. The end of the month report would bring it to upper management's attention. Now, support standard operating procedure requires a license check, which requires decryption of the existing license. Long story short, I received a call asking for the digital signature certificate, a one-time password, and I refused. Murad eventually was informed and asked the support team to provide a new license. The product support team informed him that they couldn't provide a new license without the company purchasing one. The license cost for this product was $200,000. At this point, Murad decided that they could live without the report. He mostly handled the team side of the project, so he wasn't really aware of the impact of this report. Sam returned from vacation at the end of February. By the first week of March, he noticed the missing weekly report and promptly called me. I informed him that Murad had terminated my employment. Sam was quite perplexed, to say the least. Unlike Murad, he knew that the current license needed my digital signature certificate to work, so he asked if my digital signature certificate was available. I told him that my laptop had a copy, but it was taken. He checked the system and sure enough, the laptop had been formatted. He asked me if there was any way to resolve this issue. I informed him that even if there were a way, I couldn't help him without being an employee. He asked me to wait for a few days. There is a quarterly meeting that takes place in the middle of every 3rd month, attended by the chief executive officer and top brass. At the March meeting, everyone noticed the missing report. The chief executive officer asked why this important project was missing the report. Sam informed him there were about 90 people on a call, that a key person had been let go, and the report couldn't be prepared without spending $200,000 on a new license. Now, I heard the recording of this call after rejoining, so I'll share the relevant conversation below. CEO, is this related to the layoff? Sam tells him, yes. Why wasn't this person work backed up? Why was he on the last in first out list if he was so key? He wasn't on the last in first out list. Murad jumps in. He joined less than a year ago. He must be on that list. CEO tells him, let's discuss this offline after the call. I don't know what transpired in the offline meeting, but 2 days later, I received a call from the head of human resources offering me my job back. I asked for the following: a 100% raise and promotion to the next level. Out of the last in first out obviously, permanent work from home mentioned in the contract, and I keep the termination payout. Since it will be counted as a new job in my profile, a joining bonus 20% of annual salary. I rejoined in the 3rd week of March. I received a brand new laptop within 30 minutes of rejoining and delivered to my home by someone from the information technology department of my city. It took me 10 minutes to decrypt that license using my backed up digital signature certificate, and 30 minutes to upgrade the product to the next version. By the end of lunch, the chief executive officer had a report in hand. My new promoted role offers a 60% increase in my medical insurance amount, a take-home company car, the option to purchase company stock, and lots of other upgrades. I personally thanked Murad during my first week for the promotion and recognition by the chief executive officer in a team-wide call, the same 90 people minus the top brass and chief executive officer. Edit. Wow, this post really gained attention. I've been reading all the comments and responding as best as I can. I'll clarify a few things below and will keep adding to it as more questions come in. It's not common or accepted to use a personal digital signature certificate for such an important company asset. The product company was undergoing migration of their encryption scheme and was temporarily using the government-certified encryption scheme. Once their migration was completed, we were supposed to obtain a new updated license that had the new encryption for free. I was planning to do that, but with my workload, I simply didn't find the time. Basically, since it was working fine, it wasn't a priority. The company didn't rehire me with a seemingly enormous payout just for the license dependency. Yes, that was a dependency, but had I been a poor worker deserving of termination, they would have paid me the $200,000 instead. Sam wanted me back, hence I was hired. I have a lot of proprietary knowledge and overall am a great resource. Murad is a brother of the wife of a senior board member. I still work with him on a project, as does Sam. It's one of those things in life that you accept and move on from. He's annoyed with anyone who doesn't follow his orders. Over time, I have done a lot for the project, and he now understands how valuable a resource I am. And he has stopped trying to push me out.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.